See, I'm 60, and you're nowhere near that, so you don't remember the show that was on. There was a series called Panic.
I don't
and they
remember.
specialized in shows about people like trapped in cars that were slowly filling with water.
Oh, really?
Elevators, you know, the old elevator trick and stuff. So
Well, you do that very well.
You know, so do you. It is funny, isn't it, how much like a prison story The Mist is when you think about it.
Yeah, it really is. It's a remake of Shawshank, is what it is.
That's what it is. With
Thinly
Mrs.
disguised.
Carmody as the warden.
That's right. That's right. No, these things do. These themes do keep popping out.
Yeah.
And the Long Walk is also in a sense a prison.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That road and that group of kids on the road, they're imprisoned in that situation. You do that really well.
Life is a prison. It's what Ian Esco said in Rhinoceros.
Yes.
I don't think either of us really knew how to end it for a long time. We talked about that. We kicked it back and forth. The story has no ending. And Frank finally came up with an ending. And once the ending was there, before, when we were getting ready to do this, you know, and Bob and Harvey Weinstein came into the room.
Yeah.
They say this about the ending, say that about the ending. And I'm thinking, I hope people realize that there's like 2 hours before the ending.
You're right, exactly.
Yeah.
And a damn
but they
good
will talk about
ride along the way.
Yeah.
Thanks to you, rich material. I mean, it's a movie about fear sending people off a precipice, and it just felt intuitive to me, and I'm really glad that you read and felt it was true to the story.
Is it true that you extracted a promise from the studio that they wouldn't change the ending?
Oh, absolutely. When Bob called me and said, I love this script, I'd love to make this movie, I got on a plane, I flew to New York, and this is the first time I ever met him. I sat in a room with him, and I said, Bob, you have to understand.
The ending is not negotiable.
Exactly. And if I were willing to change the ending, I'd be making this movie for over twice the budget that you're talking about. I will come and make this movie for you at Dimension for the amount of money that you're talking about, as long as the script is sacrosanct. And he was cool with that, and he's the only guy who had the balls to say, okay, let's do it. But then you have to shoot it in a certain amount of time. You have to shoot it with a certain kind of budget. And I thought, okay, fair enough.
You shot it in Louisiana.
In Louisiana in 6 weeks, 37 days, and it was
You know, I almost came
crazy.
down. I got on the computer and I did like MapQuest and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it was about 600 miles further than I thought. But I thought I was going to jump in my car and drive from Sarasota to wherever it was, you know, and jump and surprise you. But I couldn't do it.
That would have been fun.
It would have freaked you out.
Are you kidding me? I would have done a jig, man. It would have delighted me. The one time you were able to visit one of my sets was on the Green Mile, and it was on your birthday, and we knew you were coming, so we wheeled out that big cake.
And you stuck me in the electric chair, too.
Exactly.
And then everybody took pictures of me in the electric chair, and Tom Hanks is there, and I say to him, now let's see you in the electric chair. No, he says, I put people in it. I don't get in it myself. He was very clear on that.
But the first thing you did when I took you into that room was say to me, strap me into the electric chair. You were looking for that.
That's true. That's true.
And then the moment you were in there, you started getting the reality of being trapped in a chair really kind of got to you and said, okay, let's undo the straps.
Well, I mean, and you got me in the mist. You got me in the mist one time, and I mean, I had seen the film in a rough cut, and it still got me, you know.
My favorite moment, possibly in life, but certainly the whole experience of The Mist, was we were at the New Jersey test screening. You flew in for that. You were very kind. You showed up to show your support, and I was sitting right next to you. You were on this side of me, and there's this one moment in the movie, something happens. Stephen King jumped 3 feet out of his chair.
I did, but and
then landed and crunched down, and I thought, man, I rule.
Frank, you do. You totally
rule. I scared
rule.
King.
But Frank, I mean, that's like scaring Stephen King is like
with his own story.
It's like spending the night in bed with your wife or striking out the pitcher. You know, I'm scared, so you know it's easy to get me. But that was a nice. And then you said to me, the oldest trick in the book.
It was.
You know, but it's a good trick. It's a good trick. It really works.
It was fun to
just
have some of those old tricks.
The people
too.
who haven't seen the movie, watch for the hand.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. Watch for the hand.
Yes. Oldest trick in the book, something pops into the frame, and it got you.
Yeah, it got me.
Well, that's okay. That's fair enough. I mean, I've been gotten by that old trick.
You're a sick pup.
Ending
You're a
with
sick
Carrie
pup.
is this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. You must have enjoyed that.
Yeah, I did. I remember. We went to see it, and my wife and I went to Boston to see it. And we didn't know, but it was a sneak preview that was after the feature that night. This was on Washington Street in the heart of downtown Boston, and the feature was Norman Is That You with Red Fox. So we're like two little salt grains in a pepper pot because the audience was like 95% black for that movie. It was like, who's the guy who does the pictures now that are sort of like about love and marriage? What's that guy's name? You know, he's just had a picture on it.
Tyler Perry?
Tyler Perry, right. It was like a Tyler Perry picture back then. And I thought, oh, my God. And now we're going to have this girl, a little suburban white girl with her menstrual problems. They're going to laugh their heads off. But they got right behind it. And at the end, when that hand jumps out, this guy behind me says, that's it. She ain't never going to be right. And I thought, this movie's going to be a hit.
I remember going to see that. I was by myself. I went to see it in the theater, and I remember at that moment, the entire, including me, the entire audience jumped, and I remember seeing popcorn flying up toward the ceiling, and I thought, this is awesome. I'm going to get my friends, I'm going to get my brother, and I'm going to have the pleasure of watching them jump. The second time when I was with them, I jumped again.
Yeah.
There was just no way not to.
It takes about three
awesome.
times not to jump. How many times has that been done since then? That ending?
Oft imitated. Very,
duplicated.
very often imitated, as a lot of your work has been. You've really blazed some trails.
Well, that wasn't mine. That wasn't my ending. That was strictly
I know, but
Brian's.
just as a writer, just as a storyteller, a lot of people have copied your style. A lot of people have tried to do what you do. None with the creative success that you've had.
Well, thank you, Frank. That's very kind of you to say.
Well, it's nice. It's nice to have the opportunity to say nice things, to have a forum to say nice things about somebody that I love and admire as much as I
It's
love and admire
interesting
you.
that the first time we really worked together, actually the first time we worked together, Woman in the Room,
Yep.
which was a small film, and then Shawshank Redemption, both non-supernatural.
Yep.
And you're a guy who loves the genre, and I am too. But it's almost as though we got together on a different street, and so we waited all these years to go back home.
To put on a scary mask and go booga booga, as you once said. Yeah, absolutely. It's nice. There's been a very odd, pleasing circularity to this whole thing. But
it's been a while.
And I read The Mist in 1980, which was the year that I sent you that letter saying, "Dear Mr. King, do you mind if I make a short film out of The Woman in the Room?" Mm-hmm. Which I was flabbergasted, but you were generous enough to say yes. I didn't realize at the time you had this policy.
I didn't have a policy then, Frank. You were the guy who made the policy possible.
Well, I always thought it was
And
incredibly generous of you to grant those kinds of rights to young filmmakers.
Let me explain what I mean. That you were probably the first person, I think you were the first person to ever come to me and say, I want to make a small film.
Was I the first,
story.
really?
I think you were probably the first, because that's a very, very early story.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it was never published in a magazine. It was only published in Night Shift.
In Night Shift, yeah.
Because nobody would take it. I had a reputation for horror stories. That was something a little bit different. And when you sent me a copy of the film, I thought it was so fantastic. I thought, you know what? This is really interesting. These people can go and make small films out of short stories, and you just never know what they're going to come up with.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, that really is a piñata. You don't know what's going to happen, to the point where there were these kids that made a short film. They wanted to do a film out of The Sundog from 4 Past Midnight, which is a story about the dog who gets closer and closer to the Polaroid pictures. The Polaroid camera that the boy gets for Christmas takes the same picture. It doesn't matter what you aim it at. It always takes a picture of a dog by a white picket fence. But in every picture, the dog gets a little closer to the surface of the picture. And this kid did it as Gumby's. He did it as
Like claymation?
Yeah, exactly.
Did I ever tell you how I first discovered your work?
Men's Room Mall.
Literary Guild. Remember the book club?
Yep.
I was in high school, flaky high school kid. To not get the main selection, you had to remember to send the card back. And I didn't want the main selection because I didn't have the money to pay for it.
Yeah.
But I forgot to send the card back, and this box comes in the mail. And I pull it out, and it's this it looks like right up my alley because it's apparently a spooky tale, right? And it's something called The Shining by some guy named Stephen King. Mm-hmm. Or Stephen King, as I thought you were called back then. A lot of people did.
Still do.
And I remember thinking, oh, this looks pretty good, but I still can't afford it. I'm going to put it back in the box, and I'm going to ship it back. And I thought, well, just as I was reaching for the box, I flipped it open at random, and my eye landed on the paragraph where the dead woman sits up in the tub and scares Danny. And I went, ooh, wait a minute, I'm not going to send this back at all. I'm going to read this. And indeed I did. And it was like...
And then did you send it back?
No, I found the money to pay for it. Are you kidding me?
Man.
I wasn't going to send that book back. It was like I read it in a white heat. And I guess the reason I bring that up, I mean, I love the machinations of the universe, Deus Ex Machina, if you will. That immediately turned me on to your earlier works, Carrie and Salem's Lot, and all thrilling reading experiences. I turned a lot of my friends onto your work in high school, and it's the thing that I find most compelling about what you do. You're not just a genre guy, you know, tinkering with the trappings of the spooky. You're the real deal. You're a real storyteller.
Well, thank you, Frank.
I think you're going to be remembered the way Dickens is remembered.
Well, none of us will probably know unless the Mrs. Carmodys of the world are right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I predict, I really do predict that your influence has been too extraordinary for that not to be the case, I feel.
What can I say?
And welcome to the Mist press conference today. We are honored to have Stephen King and Frank Darabont.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We're happy to be here.
And we're doing something new today. We are broadcasting live around the world on paltalk.com, a global community of millions.
Well, now I'm nervous.
And don't forget, the Mist opens on November 21st. And we're going to start right here with Stephen.
Hi, Stephen Schaefer, Stephen King. From what I understood yesterday, somebody said you wrote this novella during the Vietnam War, and I said, but wait, it wasn't published until the 80s, I thought, and it seems so much like a story for today. And they said, well, you write things and you put them in a drawer and then you bring them out years later and publish them. Can you talk about the origins of the story and, you know, what you see it as being so right for 2007?
Well, it wasn't during the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was over by the time that I wrote it. A friend of mine, Kirby McCauley, was putting together an anthology called Dark Forces, and he wanted all these original stories from people who wrote in the field, in the genre. And I said, you know, Kirby, I don't think I can do that because I'm blocked. I'm not writing anything, and I hadn't. I'd finished like 3 books. There was Carrie, there was Salem's Lot, there was Night Shift, and I was kind of stuck, really. And I happened to be in the local market one time, and a lot of people were shopping, little town market, and I looked at the front windows, and I thought, you know, if something bad happened, those windows would all blow in, because that's the way I think. It's not necessarily a good thing, but it's been a profitable thing over the years. And I thought about it, mulled it over, and this story came out of it, and I've always been grateful to The Mist because it kind of broke me out of a place where I couldn't seem to do anything, and this story just came very, very naturally. And in terms of Vietnam or any other conflict, if you're writing seriously, by which I mean trying as hard as you can, the issues that are in your mind, the things you've been through, are all going to play a part.
Whatever the trappings, whatever the settings are, whatever the specifics of the story are, it comes from that storytelling muscle, you know, which is why I think this guy single-handedly took horror out of the ghetto of literature and put it into the mainstream.
And you know,
I have said, let me just compliment you here. I have said you never saw grandmas in an airport lounge reading a horror novel until Stephen King came along and brought the storytelling values of a real writer to the genre and elevated it. And we have him to thank for that.
Well, I try to put real people in stories. I would like to be able to do that, to put real people who are not cliches, who are not just, you know, this deep. I like some texture in my stuff, you know. And Frank has always respected that. And this is a movie, you can categorize it as a horror movie. I never tell anybody what to do about that. Call it whatever you want to, but please, there are real people in that supermarket.
Fear has played such a major role in your work. I wonder whether you have had in your thinking a progressive notion about fear. How has the notion of fear evolved in your mind, and how do you apply that in your work?
Fear is a survival function, right? If you're afraid of certain things, walking down the center line of a highway at night, going out in hunting season in Maine, which is what's going on now, and you're not dressed with something that's red or orange, there's always, you're afraid that you might get shot. So I think of fear as a survival function. And in the stories that I write, the only thing that I've tried to do is to provide people with nightmares, which are really safe places to put those fears for a while, because you can say afterward that well, it was all just make-believe anyway, so I just took my emotions for a walk. And this is a negative emotion. It's a kind of a pit bull in the human mind, and it needs to have a place to walk, and it needs to be petted every now and then, too, and that's what these stories try to do. And a lot of you have seen the movie, maybe all of you, and you know that these people are trapped in a supermarket and things happen to them that are inexplicable or not normal, but sooner or later every one of us faces those things in our own life. You might call it cancer instead of things in the mist, but we're all afraid of those things, and it seems valid to me to explore them. But if I have any more ideas about fear, just that I'm glad I do what I do, because it's allowed me to sort of vent a lot of this stuff and get paid for it, whereas people, I've said this before, who go to see shrinks, pay them. This is a win-win for me.
Hi, this is Brad Balfour, timesquare.com. When we were talking to Frank before, we were talking about the fact that the story sort of straddles between science fiction and the supernatural. Your story is a bit more supernatural. This is, I think, has a bit of more of a science fiction bent. Could you, both of you, talk about how you viewed it? And also, Stephen, why didn't you be involved with the production of this film?
I was writing a book. That's the short answer to that. And in terms of the science fiction, I've written a lot of stories that I think of as sort of science fiction, you know. And for me, it always has to be sort of science fiction, because I was a C chemistry student and a B- physics student. So I was never a geek, and I never had a lot of those skills or that knowledge base. But on the other hand, I saw a lot of movies in the 50s, like The Thing and Them, and I know that, like, radiation causes monsters, and most important of all, I know that if we mess around too much with the unknown, something awful will happen.
The first law of physics. Radiation makes monsters. Big ants. I did, you know, my answer to that question is, you know, I love this stuff too. I mean, we have a common genetic predisposition toward loving these sorts of things. This is what brought me to this master's work in the first place, because I love this stuff. But to me, it's all. It's the fun part. It's the trappings of, you know, is it a little science fiction? Yeah. Is it a little horror? Hopefully, it's a lot horror. But ultimately, it's the core of what makes him such a muscular master storyteller is the fact that he's it never just devolves into the trappings. It's always about the human core of the storytelling. It's always about that journey of the human condition within his storytelling, and that's what makes it particularly valid, particularly relevant. And the discussion earlier of fear, how does that relate? It's an examination of fear. It's an examination of people operating in a pressure cooker of fear where fear replaces reason. That's why I've always loved this story. It wasn't so much about the mist outside the windows with the groovy critters in it. It's about what the people are going through inside the market, and it winds up being pretty real and pretty disturbing because there's nothing scarier than human nature and human behavior. That's why I thought the thing had some muscle. And it's, the thing, it's about fearing fear itself. It's what does it do to people? How does it wig them out? How does it compel us? Does it bring us together? Does it tear us apart? Do we make mistakes? Do we sail off a precipice? This is pretty meaty stuff for a filmmaker, and I can't thank you enough for letting me make the movie.
Oh, gee. I love to work with Frank. I've worked with Frank, well, basically, I don't work with Frank. I just basically stand aside and let Frank do his thing. And the thing about Frank that I've always liked is that he still has a child's imagination coupled with an adult's ability to see the core of the material and then execute his vision. So you've got a couple of things going on there that hook up together that you don't see in a lot of filmmakers. You do see it in some, and they do good work, and Frank has always done good work. I feel very comfortable that I'm going to get something from Frank that's going to be usually extraordinary. Well, in my case, he's done The Woman in the Room, which was a small film. He's done Shawshank. He's done The Green Mile. And he's done The Mist. And it isn't just me. I hear from other people all the time. They'll say, I just love those movies. I got to tell this story. I ran into a woman. We live half the year down in Sarasota. And my wife and I have worked out an agreement where she'll do the heavy shopping once a week, but she'll send me for the crap, that she forgets and stuff. So I'm there in the supermarket one day, and I've got my little cart. I come around the corner, and there's this woman. I'm going to say she was about 95. And she said, I know who you are. You write those stories, those awful horror stories. I don't respect that. I don't like that. I like uplifting movies like that, Shawshank Redemption. And I said, I wrote that. And she said, no, you didn't. And that was it. She went on. So, it's just, but it's very much of a piece with, I like that too. No, you didn't. Talk about feeling surreal. And I'm thinking to myself, geez, maybe I didn't, for a minute. It's not very much like my other stuff. Maybe I didn't write that one. When Frank and I talked about The Mist, he would always say to me, it's got to have a strong ending. And you
would say the same thing to me from time to time.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what we were too kind to say to each other was that the story has, well, I won't say it's a weak ending exactly, but it was the kind of ending that my late mother didn't respect. She called them Alfred Hitchcock endings, and you were kind of left to make up your own mind. She had nothing but contempt for that. And so Frank came up with an ending to the movie that I thought was terrific on the page, and the only time that I ever wavered even slightly was when I actually saw it, and I said to myself, this is so shocking that there ought to be ads in the newspaper that say, if you reveal the last 5 minutes of this movie, you will be hung by the neck until dead. Because that's the one thing that I hate about the internet age is all this stuff gets out.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Okay, we're now going to turn our attention to the people in the Pal Talk community who are going to ask a question. And the first one is going to be from Matt from New Jersey.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, good.
That's great. Just a quick question for Frank. Frank, do you get the creeps when you start reading some of Stephen's work?
I get the creeps every time I read his work. But the creeps is only part of the journey he takes me on. I find his storytelling so satisfying because it has enormous depth as well as as well as the surface texture of the creepy stuff, which I certainly dig. But oh yeah, he always does. I love him for that.
Jason from New York.
Hi there. Could you have ever imagined when you began writing that not only would so many of your books be made into tremendous movies, but that so many Academy Award winners would actually play the characters that you created, like Jack Nicholson and Tom Hanks and Morgan Freeman?
No, I could never have imagined it, and I never did. The only thing that I wanted was to support myself and my family without teaching school, by doing what I love and know how to do, which is telling stories. So all the rest of this is the bonus round.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everybody here.
Thank you very
everybody in the
much.
Pal Talk community.
That was it.
And especially thanks to these two gentlemen.